industry professionals to the session and faculty members from various colleges and AIMS and also students from various colleges and AIMS to the session. Now, I would like to request our director, Professor Pushpa Shetty ma'am, to address the gathering on the event.
Shubhodaya, Namaskar, good morning to everyone who have gathered here today. A long-awaited talk and a much trending talk, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat. No doubt, COVID-19 has locked us all inside our houses. A new normal life has begun. We have to accept the new norm and move ahead. As Samata just said, yes, it has affected every sector of the economy and every walk of life across the globe. And keeping this in view, our Prime Minister, of course, came out with a very good abhiyan, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is the vision of our government to strengthen our economy and strengthen our India. And as you all are aware, which we are watching every day, there are a lot of schemes that came up to support and enlighten or to move ahead to the economy that has fallen down drastically. It has to be pushed ahead. And a lot of schemes were brought in with 5 pillars, that is economy, infrastructure, system, vibrant demography, and the demands, to create the demands. So accordingly, a lot of in phase 5, it has been rolled out. And out of which, of course, one of the sectors that we want to focus here today, keeping institutions, especially the colleges, we thought we would focus on the students and the startups and entrepreneurship. As we know that most of the students now are at the verge of starting their career, at the threshold of, a new beginning had to start. But unfortunately, a big jolt, there is a delay. But then, of course, this delay should not be taken negatively. Maybe it has given us the time to plan out well, and move ahead with that, strong motive, so that we put a strong foothold and take it ahead with all the support. And as I said, yes, through the schemes of Atmanirbhar Bharat, various schemes have been rolled out, which students may not be aware of how to take it ahead. They may be having a lot of ideas, but how to ideate this, how to start up. So with this regard, we thought the right person for today's talk was our CMA, Mr. Ravindranath Kaushik, who is an eminent personality, who has got a deep knowledge about this sector and who has done a lot of work. I think he will share his views and insights to boost and motivate our students who have these ideas to take it ahead. And as we said, yes, startups or entrepreneurship, this is one sector where even our beloved former Prime Minister, former President always stressed upon. That is our all-time favorite, our Kalam sir. He always said that, yes, we should not be job seekers, but we should be job creators. And he had a passion of meeting up all the entrepreneurs, motivating them, because they build the economy, they build the future, they build the nation. And in this regard, we thought, yes, the students can get a lot of takeaways from today's talk. And he's here to give us a lot of inputs and insights as to what are the hurdles or how to take it ahead, and what are the schemes available from Government of Karnataka or Government of India, and to motivate the students or anybody for that matter who have gathered here to take this, their passion, their dreams ahead. And this regard, a very warm welcome to you, Ravindranath sir, to this session. We are all looking forward to your insights. A warm welcome to you again from Aditya Institute of Management Studies.
Thank you, madam. It's my pleasure to be with you.
And again, a very warm welcome to all the participants. We have participants from across Karnataka and from other states as well. A warm welcome to all the faculty members, all the industry professionals, and of course, our students. Our all-time favorite students are all here eagerly waiting to get some ideas, to get some inputs, so that they can start off in a very, very firm foothold. Hope all of you will have a great session today. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Let us all gather a lot of insights in today's talk. Over to you, Samatha.
Yes, ma'am. First, I would like to request all the participants to turn off their audio and video. It's my privilege to introduce today's resource person, CMA N. Ravindranath Kaushik. Sir is a cost and management accountant specialized in GST, direct taxes, project consulting, and academic training. Having a wide experience, 11 years of industry experience and 10 years of professional consulting experience. Sir is qualified with fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, MPhil in economics, postgraduate degrees in finance, taxation, and economics, certified in international taxation from IIIT WTO studies. His accomplishments are, he is a chairman for the year 2018-19 for ICAI Bangalore chapter, assessor CII National Skill Development Corporation, Government of India, nominated by LUB Karnataka to Regional Advisor Committee of Central GST, member FKCCI LUB IEDRC Hong Kong Chamber of Tax Consultants, member Direct Tax Expert Committee BCIC, resource person Higher Education Academy Government of Karnataka, visiting faculty Fiscal Policy Institute Government of Karnataka. Sir is a resource person for National Dairy Development Board Government of India. He is a resource person for DIC MSME Government of India, resource person for TechSoc Government of Karnataka, and he is invited by many institutions to their board of study meetings as subject matter expert. And he is also advisory committee member, Entrepreneur Development Cell, Army Institute of Management. And Sir has delivered many workshops, seminars, and keynote addresses. He is a resource person and delivered keynote address in various national, state, and UGC-sponsored conferences, workshops, and seminars. He has also presented papers in national, international, and state-level conferences, published articles in national and international journals. He has addressed in more than 100 programs on GST, target audience being industrial bodies, MSME sectors, and students. He has conducted webinars on practical topics to various professionals. He has delivered more than 100 talks on various topics in many institutions across India. He has addressed more than 40 online FDPs, MPPs as resource person for various institutions, industrial bodies, associations, MSME departments during COVID-19. Conducted more than 60 financial literacy programs to various target groups like students, special help groups, self-help groups, professionals, etc. Sir has been awarded for Sadhak Lifetime Achievement Award 2018-19 by TMT. He has participated in debates and live phone-in programs in national Doordarshan and private TV channels. Sir, I'm really honored to introduce you to the audience for today's session. Hope they will have a lot of insights and inputs about Atmanirbhar Bharat and opportunities post-COVID-19. So before handing over to you, sir, I would like to request the participants once again to turn off their video and audio for smooth function. At the same time, please stop presenting. And one more request to the participants, please pin the presentation of sir so that you will not be disturbed. Thank you. Sir, now the session is yours.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to thank the management of Aditya Institute of Management Studies and Research, and especially the director, Srimati Dr. Pushpa Shetty Madam, for inviting me to address the students, especially the final year students. That's very important. So for a very important topic today. So I'm thankful for Madam for inviting me, and also for giving a beautiful introduction about me. I would like to thank the Madam for the introduction. And also, I would like to thank the entire faculty community who have joined today for this session on Atmanirbhar Bharat. So just I'll share my presentation. I'll be speaking much, okay? A lot of things will not be there in presentation. I'll be talking to you much which are not covered in the presentation, because I am the person who doesn't like presentation, okay? So I don't make normally presentations. Since many of the students have participated today, I thought of making some presentation. I think my presentation is, you can view the presentation, right? It is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
It's visible,
okay.
Sir.
Good. Thank you. So just to start with Atmanirbhar Bharat, I would like to just say what is this Atmanirbhar Bharat in a simple example. Okay, I would like to take a simple example and tell you what is this Atmanirbhar Bharat. So what was that earlier, before this Atmanirbhar Bharat came into picture? That is, thought process of Atmanirbhar Bharat came into the picture on April 12th, when Prime Minister made the announcement of 20 lakh crore schemes which are applicable to various sectors. So what was that before this? So why it's called as Atmanirbhar Bharat? Why they are stressing more on this? So we had Make in India, we had Made in India, Stand Up India schemes, Skill India, and all those schemes earlier launched. But what is this Atmanirbhar Bharat? What is that something, the gap which was not identified earlier has been fixed in this particular scheme? Or what is this? Is it just a sloganeering, or is it something really which will be impactful on the economy? Or what is that government wants to say through this particular Atmanirbhar Bharat? See, to give an example, to make it very simple for you to understand, see, earlier we used to stitch clothes. Earlier, what used to happen is, we used to stitch a cloth, or we used to stitch a dress, and we used to ask people to wear it. So that was the condition what Indian economy was adopting all these years. That means basically we used to copy the models from various countries. To start with, our constitution itself is copied constitution. I think most of you know, who are political science students or who have studied Constitution of India. So in order to study the introduction part of our constitution, will be we need to study that. We have borrowed more than 350 type of activities from the constitution from outside India. That means there are various sections in our constitution, the provisions of which have been borrowed from various countries. That is almost around 10 countries we have borrowed different provisions which are there in our constitution. So that is the starting point to talk about post-independence era, when India was drafting a constitution. It is most of the provisions we have copied from other countries, whether it was suitable for us or not, whether it was applicable for our country or not, we never bothered about it. We just copied it and we asked people to follow it. See, this has been done for quite a long time. Okay, we keep on doing the same exercise again and again, whether it is beneficial for us, whether this can be adopted to Indian model or not, whether our tradition, culture, system provides this or not, we are least bothered about it. What we are doing, we are just taking some good things from outside India, and we are trying to enforce that, impose that, implement that in India. So this is what our system is and was till May 2020, when the formal structure of Atmanirbhar Bharat came out. So here, what I would like to say is, now we are stitching the cloth according to the requirement of people. That means dresses are now stitched taking the measurement of what type of dress that person wants, what type of comfortability that person will be having if I stitch that cloth in such a way, or what is the dressing which best suits that person. I'm stitching that according to his will and according to his wishes. That is what Atmanirbhar Bharat is all about. All these days we did not think about this. Now suddenly we have woken up. So it's a good news that yesterday the national education policy is out. It took 34 years for us to roll out a new educational policy. I think most of the people who are there as faculties who have joined for the session, they will be knowing how this system of policy education, what they are trying to implement from today onwards. That is 1st of August, we'll say. But since it has been, ordinance has been passed already yesterday, cabinet has approved it. So it will be effective from 1st of August onwards. So this was a long pending thing. And as Macaulay told somewhere in the 19th century, the same model we are adopting in our education system, and all these days we followed the same practices without even thinking of whether it will be adopted by our kids or not. Whether it is advisable for us kid to follow that or not, we didn't do it. Whether our faculties are interested to do the subjects like that or not, we didn't bother about it. More than that, whether the world looks into that system or adaptation of that system will be benefiting our country or not, we did not bother about it. So simply we had some copied education model again. So we had a lot of differentiation between CBSE, ICSE, state syllabus and all those things. So end of the day, it is either students get confused or parents get confused or teachers get confused. So when it comes to the question of employability, still we see that students who have secured based on grades or marks, whatever we are talking about, 75% of the students who pass out the degree doesn't get any job in the market. That is, they are not fit for employability, in order to put it in simple words. Then what did you teach for 15 years, 18 years, 21 years in college then? So that means literally we have wasted the kids' energy, and parents' resources have also been gone for toss. So after 21 years, if you are not able to find or get a job, or if the skill set is not employable, then what did we do in the last 21 years for that kid then? So who should take the blame and responsibility for this? See, basically Atmanirbhar Bharat is something which tries to address these type of issues. That is, first we need to address the society related thing, then link to the economic related activities. So here society and economy are viewed as two important points. So economic impact will be assessed through society change. That's what Atmanirbhar Bharat objective is. So let us bring in some changes which is more close to our culture and tradition. Let us make people adopt this culture and tradition in their approach. Then let us shift it to the economy. So economy is not given the front part in this particular Atmanirbhar scheme, whatever the government has launched. The primary or most important aspects which is looked into in this Atmanirbhar is first bring change in society. That is what is the factor which will lead to the development of the economy. So this is what Atmanirbhar Bharat is. So just I wanted to introduce this topic because most of you, if I keep talking about the 20 lakh crore package, whatever the Prime Minister has announced, without knowing what is this Atmanirbhar Bharat, then it is no use. It just looks like a schemes. Okay, unlike we had a lot of schemes earlier also by previous governments and all those things. So we are good in rolling out schemes, okay, but implementation and the monitoring of the schemes are something which is very difficult in India. So that is how we have been brought up, and that's how we have been taught to live in this society. So at least now they have made up some mind in order to change the way the India is looking towards, especially after March, that is after this COVID pandemic broke out in the world. Suddenly there is a shift, paradigm shift is there in the way how the Indian markets are looked into. So today I'll be concentrating on some of the important things. Since you people are students, many of them, majority of them are students, I think you need to understand the position of India today in the global context. So later on, I'll come back to what the particular thing, what you people can contribute in nation building. Okay. But first of all, we need to identify where we stand today. Because are we ready for taking up the challenge? See, challenges are coming on India's side. India is getting a lot of opportunities today. But are we ready to take up that opportunity? That's the biggest question today. So I have a couple of things I want to explain you. Okay, so what makes us strong in simple? What makes India strong? Why people are looking towards India? What is that which is contributing towards India to be a great nation, especially? Till March, I will just give you some examples. Till March, India used to depend on US for each and everything. And you people know how many times our Prime Minister visited US before March. But see the drastic change, what happened after March. That is after the pandemic started across the world. Now, US wants India now. So there is a sudden shift from the policy of international understanding, whatever we are talking about. Now, today, US is coming and supporting India for each and everything. So daily, there will be one or other statement made from the US government, either by the president himself or from his administration, wherein they will take India's name and say that, yes, this is the country which we need to focus upon. So that is the level of changes which took place just within last 3 to 4 months. Okay. So first and foremost thing, we need to understand something, that there is a new world order which has emerged suddenly after this March. What is this new world order? See, new world order consists of 3 important countries. One is India, second one is China, and the third one is US. See, these are the 3 strategic important countries which the world looks as the potential countries which can drive the future growth after we come out of this pandemic situation. We don't know when we are coming out of this pandemic situation. Still we are fighting. Okay, I don't know when this fighting lasts or till what time this fighting lasts, because still we are in the process of inventing the vaccine and all those things. But it's a question which is very difficult to answer at this point of time, since the virus is at the peak stage now. We don't know. Okay. So most of the countries, especially European Union, Australia, and of course, many Middle East countries are focusing only on these 3 countries, and they somehow have that confidence that these 3 countries can change the world in the coming years. Even though India's GDP is just 2.4% of the world GDP, we never were matching in the top 5 nations in terms of GDP and all those things. But still, there is somewhat confidence on India. I don't know what is that which is making them. I think I will be elaborating those things on the 4th point, which is making India a strong country. The 4th point, what I'm mentioning there, that is the factor which most of the countries are looking in India, which is absent in most of the countries outside India. So I'll come back to that point later. So what is this new world order? See, new world order is the triplicate countries, that is tripartite countries, US, China, and India. These are the 3 countries. And if you see the mutual relationship between these countries, India and US have a very positive relationship, and US with India has a very positive relationship. That we are seeing it day in and day out. We are seeing this. What is that relationship India is having with US? So it may be in terms of visa related issues, or it may be in terms of supplying of drugs by India to malarian drug to India to US, or US supplying back helicopters to India or submarines to India, or support from US in terms of India, in terms of intelligence and all those matters. You can see what is the type of relationship what we are enjoying with US. So US badly needs India, and India also badly needs US now. That is one thing. Second, if you see the relationship between US and China, see, these are the 3 countries which are there, triangular countries which are there. So if you see the relationship between China and the US, I think most of you know what type of relationship they enjoy. It's totally negative relationship they're having. So you know what is the trade war which is happening, and it's also, you know, literally US is suing China for all the virus, why it kept quiet without telling that virus has broken out in China, so that we could have pre-planned all those things, because US is the major sufferer, because more than 1.5 lakh people have died in US because of this virus. And majority of the major cities have been impacted by this virus. So there is definitely, before virus also, there was trade wars. And you know what these people are doing with Hawaii and all those things, where US is threatening that they will also block all these apps from China. And also they have closed the consulates in some parts of US. And also they have closed some of the companies listing in the major stock exchanges of US and all those things. So series of measures have been taken by US in order to see that China's growth will not have the future impact on any business across the globe. So totally there is a negative approach or negative relationship which is there between US and China and US. So both ways. Coming back to China and India, see, this is a very important strategic thing which you need to understand. Okay, because there is one side where many of the companies from China is shifting back to countries like India and some Southeast Asian countries. So there are a lot of things which are happening now. So even China, India has also put some ban on 59 apps, and latest 42 apps. They have already taken serious ban on these apps which has originated from China. And also the trade deficit between India and China is narrowing up now. And you know how the strategically military things, how India handled in Ladakh and other parts of the northeastern sectors, when Chinese army started dominating on Indian sectors. So how China was dragged out and how the China was made to push beyond the LAC. All these things I think you will be aware of. If you are regularly reading newspaper, you will be aware of all these things. So these are strategical things. Okay, I will not get into too much of those things because there are a lot of things which you need to understand if you want to understand relationship between India and China. See, one thing is sure, people of China also not so much, not so much for this regime, whatever is there today in China. Even they are also criticizing, but they are helpless because that is how communism works. Okay, so since communist is ruling China, the people don't have any democratic rights to stand up and raise voice against the policies of that particular regime. So since they are toothless now. So you know what happened to the doctor who talked about this Wuhan virus. He is the first person who talked about such type of virus, and it spreads across the world if you are getting infected, all those things. He spoke that, but that was not made public, and that person was, you know what happened to that person. Okay, I'll not get into those things also. So China, people are not happy with the rule, what is there today in China. So today there was a question mark news which was appearing as a breaking news in some part of media, where they told that the present president of China is under pressure, he may resign at any point of time. We don't know whether it's true or not, but there was a thing which was flickering around in all the major news channels where there was such news was carried out. But that is certain, it will happen, okay. There will be a drastic change in the regime in China in coming months, especially because most of the countries are not happy with China, how it is handling this COVID situation and how the policies of the present regime is towards the world economy. Not only with the world economy, even with the border countries also. China today have border issues with 15 countries. So they have land dispute with 15 countries, including India. And most of the countries, Tibet and Hong Kong and all, Taiwan, Thailand, all these people have faced a lot of issue with this Chinese aggression and occupation. So there is a serious threat for China today. And coming back to India-China relationship, still it is question mark. Okay. So we saw Chinese president coming to India we had a very cordial meeting in Mahabalipuram and also in Gujarat. And Indian Prime Minister also went to China and he participated in a lot of meetings there. See, we still have a cordial relationship with them. Still, our embassies are talking to them. Our Prime Minister is talking to the President. So there is nothing called as we have gone into escalation mode, especially that is the normal problem which was created in LAC. That is because of a border dispute which is there not from now, it is from 1935. So, you know, you please go back and read the history of what is the border dispute between India and China. And this is issue which is pending since 1935. This is not something which has happened under what is this, NDA government or something like that. This is a long-standing issue which was not solved by the first Prime Minister of India who ruled India for 16 years. Okay, this was a major issue and this is a contribution of that Prime Minister to India. He is the person who had, in spite of Chinese showing their willingness to solve the border dispute a couple of times, our people did not show interest to solve this matter. Okay, that is politics. Okay, and I will not talk about that also. If you are interested, please go back and read the Panchashila and after that what happened and what the forward policy of the government was and all those things. You will understand what these people have done during those times. So all these disputes today, whatever is there, be it Kashmir or be it your Chinese or whatever, wherever we have border dispute, we need to take back to pre-independence era. This is the time where they created all these issues. Okay, so fine, we'll not get back to those things. So new world order looks like this. Three people are there, three strategic nations are there. One is India, other is US and other is China. So India, China doesn't, till now we don't have what positive or negative relationship. We are balancing it. Okay, so we are respecting each other. So trade is taking place in the normal process. We are not put any tariff barriers or trade wars are not happening with India and China, except for a ban on the 59 apps and also 42 apps because of threatening. There was some security issues and all those things. That is the reason why they have banned it, not because of trade wars or something like that. So China is also exporting to India and India is also exporting to China. So this process is happening. So the relationship is in still question mark. It's hanging. We don't know. Okay, whether we enjoy positive or negative, if you ask me, I will not be able to tell at this point of time. But India and US, yes, definitely we have a positive relationship between both countries. But China and US have totally negative relationship as of today. So there are other instances why China has a negative relationship with US. I will not deal with those international issues and all, because that is not part of today's discussion. So please remember this. We need to operate with these three countries which have different types of relationship. So India is a strategic partner. Why strategic partner? Because we need to maintain same level of distance between US and China now. Because we are the country, we need to balance this activity, and that is the only country which can dictate the future terms of trade, what will happen in intra-business. And for that also, India got recognition because United Nations has given a seat for India, temporary seat, not a permanent seat. Even though there was a lot of push for making, pushing India to become a permanent member in the United Nations, but still that process could not happen. But this time we got enormous support from all the countries across the globe, and we got a push over Canada to become a permanent, temporary member of the United Nations. So now we have some power in United Nations. That is one thing which you need to remember. And also in the World Bank, India has been appointed as one of its directors in the, sorry, not World Bank, World Health Organization. So that is also one of the important things which you need to bear it in mind. So this has been, this has happened within last 3 months. Okay, so India has got total visibility and Indian importance has been involved in that. And also in G7 nations, India was invited to give an address. That's a very important thing. India doesn't figure in G7 nations, but India was especially invited into G7 nations meeting, and India was asked to deliberate on a very important topic in that particular G7 meeting. That is, they are looking towards India, and the US has already told we need to revamp the G7 and we need to, without India and without Australia and some countries, G7 is useless or it is not complete. That's what the thing, what the US has told. and many countries has also watched that particular thing. Without India and Australia, G7 or any country cooperation, whatever we start, right, it is useless. So that is the position of India today in the international arena, what we are enjoying. Okay, next point, very important point to know is Asia-centric world economy. See, the world today is focused not on European Union, or it is not on Middle East, because you know what is happening to the oil crisis, and it's not US also. So the entire shifting is on the Asia-centric economy. When I say Asia-centric economy, it's not only between India and China. There are other major players like Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, and all those Southeast Asian nations, what we call as. They also play a very, very, very prominent role. Most of you might be surprised if I say the point that most of the Chinese businesses which were lost, most of it did not come to India. It went to Southeast Asia. So countries like Thailand, countries like Philippines, countries like Singapore, they were the people who got majority stake in the business which are coming out from China. Even though India is also getting some stake, but most of the people are preferring to go back to the Southeast Asian nations. So India has a very good relationship with Southeast Asian nations. And that relationship was proved in 2016 Republic Day Parade, when Indian government invited 10 presidents of Southeast Asian nations for Republic Day Parade as chief guests. So India has tried to maintain this type of cordial relationship with its Southeast Asian nation from quite long. And we have a very good cultural relationship as well as commerce relationship with these people over a period of time. And since these people are suffering from China's aggression in Southeast Asia, South Asian China Sea, or South Asian Sea for that matter, or it may be because of their aggression on their lands, which is again a disputed lands which China is occupying with these people. So somehow they are also not happy with how Chinese regime is behaving with those Southeast Asian countries also. But they believe in India. That's a very important positive factors. So what India has gained in terms of foreign relationship over a period of time. So India has tried to conquer those relationships, which is there for quite a long time. We did not do it. We did not establish our relationship with these countries. Okay, that's one more thing, important point. So it's more of Asia-centric world economy, which is moving towards, where India and China is also one of the major countries in that. The third one is, of course, the Atmanirbhar, when Prime Minister was addressing on this Atmanirbhar Bharat, he talked about vocal for local and then local to global. So this is a very important wordings. You need to remember these wordings. What is this vocal for local means? See, first and foremost thing, whatever you want to do it at the satisfaction, or make it as an objective to be self-reliant first. Okay, self-reliant is one of the important thing, and whatever you do it for your country first. So in simple, it's called as localization. So India, after this 1991 LPG reforms, right, we moved towards the globalization thing. So we were stuck between globalization and localization. That's a major problem which happened with India. So major problem which needs to be blamed is the post-liberalization could not be carried out properly because of the coalition politics which spoiled the Indian economy for quite a long time. Even though we remember P.V. Narasimha Rao for his brave efforts, great efforts of bringing these reforms, but somehow that reforms could not be carried forward in the way it should have been carried forward. The main reason is because India went into coalition politics for next 20 years. This 20 years spoiled the Indian economy. Because one time we saw that 18 parties coming together and forming the government at center. 18 parties with different ideologies, with different agendas, with different manifestos. They came together and formed the government at the center. So somehow, the strong message of whatever the LPG was there, right, that could not be carried down for drilling down the economy into the growth stage. We lost that precious 20 years of post-liberalization because of the fight between the parties. But then successful governments which came into power, you know what happened with UPA government. I'll not talk about all those things. And finally, what happened with the NDA government, which started in 2014 onwards. So this is a time when people thought, yes, we were not being using this post-liberalization into a strong message. That is where the Prime Minister told that we need to first concentrate on localization, because providing jobs is important for our people. Creating livelihood is very important for our people first. Bringing social discomfort removal, that removal of this social discomfort which was there, and the inequalities which was there, and in the distribution of resources or in the distribution of the various schemes and activities. So this was something which was happening the Indian system of development. So that was the time when Prime Minister thought that, yes, we need to, even though we started Make in India in 2014, Made in India was there, Stand Up, Skill India, all those things were started, but something was haunting in the system. And I think this COVID, we need to thank this COVID, whatever the bad things COVID has caused, more than that, it is creating a lot of positive things. That's very important, okay? So it happens normally. If Hiroshima and Nagasaki was not destroyed by US and Japan, Japan could not have stood back like this today. Okay, their development took place because of US bombing those two countries. So I'm not for that. I'm not telling I'm for such type of destruction and all. What I'm saying is, yes, sometimes some things like this, right, will create positive impact and also bring a drastic change in the system, which will not happen even if you pass 100 years without such changes. So I think COVID-19 has thrown open all these challenges to us. And now we have started thinking in a different way. At least now let us not copy from others. Let us have our own system which is helpful for our country to get placed in the topmost position in the world. So what is that we need to do which benefits our country most? How we should do it? Who should do it? So these are the questions which arises. So the first factor is social factors. Unless and until you create a very good social environment within the country, it's hardly impossible for us to grow economically. So unless and until we create a market for our people within the country, we create employment for the people within the country, you create opportunities for these people within the country, you can't think about development. I'll give you just one small example. So UPA, during UPA regime, definitely there was a high GDP growth. Okay, 6.2%, 7% and all, it got recorded at that point of time. So do you think that growth rate happened because of employment? You go back and check the employment statistics at that point of time. Still, there was huge unemployment issues which are there during that regime also. But what contributed growth rate? Growth rate was contributed by three important sectors. One was real estate, the other one was gold, and the third one is market, share market. See, these are the three sectors which contributed positive growth, and all these three sectors will not contribute to job. Please remember, even though there was a GDP growth rate which was recorded at that point at 7.28% and all, but all these three sectors, major contribution came from stock market. Stock market definitely will not create more jobs. Real estate, unless real estate is converted into construction projects, just investment in land will not create jobs. And gold, of course, putting more investments in gold and trading in gold. That is where the gold schemes were launched. So these three were the primary contributors towards GDP, which never contributed towards employment. It contributed to GDP, but not towards employment. See, employment creation is very important because consumption will start and demand will start only when employment is getting created. It's fundamental of economics. Okay, how inflation and how the economy grows and all these factors, it's related to consumption, demand and supply. These are the three important factors. So unless and until you create employment, then consumption will also not go up. Demand will not go up. Demand, if it doesn't go up, means consumption will not go up. So when we are talking about this local to global, these are the very important things. First, we are talking about bringing the schemes which will create employment opportunities for our people, both in urban and rural sector. That is vocal to local. Then comes local to global. See, this is one more thing, because I told you India is becoming an integrated economy. What is this integrated economy? Because majority of the decision will not be taken by India going forward, because we are becoming a strategic supply chain partners across the globe. So that means majority of the decisions tomorrow will come from outside India, not within India. World will say what India should supply, what type of goods they want from India, and India should do it. See, that is globalization again. So push from vocal to local, and local should now focus on globalization. So there is a drastic change. So earlier we did not concentrate on localization, we focused more on globalization. And we were confused whether to protect our industries or whether to compete, invite people from outside India to do business in India. Again, the same East India Company would have formed again if you had continued the same thing. Unless and until you form a local strong market, right? Again, you will go back to that 16th century East India Company, which came and started using India for trading purpose. Then they started occupying India itself. You know the history of how India was occupied by those people who came as traders. So that we'll move into the back to the same square again. So local to global is now, this is the challenging area what youth should be very careful of. I'll come back to this in a quiet minute from now, local to global. I'll tell you what are the challenges which are there and where you should focus upon. The fourth important point is very important. That is where people are believing in India. The globe believes in India because of our strong value system, which we have inherited from around 5,000, 6,000 years of our forefathers' contribution towards our country. And the trust. China has lost its trust. So people have lost faith in China today. Even though Chinese invention, Chinese technologies, we don't have any competitors in the world as of now. We should probably accept that. Okay, because the way the skill sets availability in China is today, right? It is nowhere available in the world. That is a fact. And this was accepted by even the Apple CTO, who told that they were still having double mind to shift their businesses from China to other countries. When they asked him, are you comfortable with shifting your business centers from China to other countries? He openly said that still they don't feel that there is a suitable place anywhere in the world which can match with Chinese skill sets. This is exactly what he told. So again, I'm repeating, people don't have issue with Chinese people. People have issues with Chinese regime. So when regime changes, we don't know how the world reacts to China. Okay, so we need to be on the safer side now. So we need to look into all these factors when we are talking about the future of how the economy will grow because of this Atmanirbhar Bharat. So the value system, what we have inherited, and the entire world knows that India has not gone for any aggression with any countries, in spite of India being targeted by many countries across the globe, India being the victim, okay, for various centuries, especially in aggression and all those things. All countries have come and looted India. All companies have come and destroyed India. All countries have come and destroyed India. But till now, India has not made even a single effort to go and occupy other territories. This is the value system what we have emanated from. And the strong ethos and cultural values what we are practicing today, which are inherited from thousands of years back, that is something which is making India a strong country today to believe and to have trust with. This belief and trust is something which is attracting more and more countries towards India today. So that is the strongest thing what India has today, which most of the countries in world doesn't have today. They don't believe other countries. They will always look in yellow eyes. The countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the GCC country, what we call as Gulf Cooperating Council countries, Cooperation Council countries. There are 7 countries in that Gulf region, okay, Middle East region. All these 7 countries are looking towards India. They want support from India. So they are depending on trade, they are depending on softwares, they are depending on all the exports and imports from India. So today, these are the countries which believe in India, even though you know what these countries are and what their religion is and what the laws they follow, still they trust India. And you can imagine if Swaminarayan temple is getting constructed in UAE, means you know what type of relationship what India is having with UAE. So the strong value system and trust is what making other countries to move towards India. The last important factor why India is becoming strong is we have a huge population. Huge population creates huge demand. That means we have a huge consumer market. That's why world is looking towards India. Why people like Walmart are coming, Amazon are coming, Flipkarts are coming. Why these people are opening up branches everywhere in India. Why foreign companies have started operating in India, Uber, Ola, all these companies. Name any top 50 innovative brands. Latest to add is Apple. Latest, you know what happened with Reliance. Okay, so how many companies it attracted in order to Jio Mart and all those things, Facebook, Walmart, everything is joining. So why these people are more interested means because India is a huge consumer market. We have a very good consumer market. Our population supports the more of we are accustomed to that. That's why that's because of our education system or not, I don't know. We like those products. We buy that product. To give a simple example, there was an Indian product which was just like WhatsApp. Okay, just like WhatsApp, India came up with one of innovative products like WhatsApp app itself. But how many people installed it on their mobile phones? Many of them did not install because they started asking questions. Normally, that is the condition of India. When something comes from local, right, we ask 101 questions. When something comes from foreign, right, we directly go and buy it without checking even all the other parameters, whether there is a safety, security measures are there. Because we trust whatever comes from foreign is what it will be meeting all the standards. That's our impression. That's our stereotype, what we have developed over a period of years. And that is, we need to thank our education system, but because that has created such type of inferiority complex among our own products and more lean towards the foreign brands. So that is how we have been brought up, and that is how we respond to also. So there was a lot of apps which came up, which was indigenously developed by our engineers in India, but most of them never hit your app stores. Why? Because most of us started questioning. So when it comes from abroad, we directly accept it. When it comes within our country, we try to question. So that is our stereotype, which we need to change it. And I think it will happen in few years. Coming back to some of the important statistics, I just wanted to show youngsters who are there in this particular webinar. If you see the youth in the age group of 15 to 24, right, we have almost 20% of India's population on this age group. So 20% of India's population is in the age group of 15 to 24 years. Now you can think how serious the issue is with the youths. Next, India's demographic dividend to last till 2055. This is one of the biggest thing what will be there, which is a positive factor for India. So as I tell positive, it is also a negative factor. Okay, if you don't handle this situation properly in the coming years, right, this will boomerang us. Demographic dividend will boomerang us. What is this demographic dividend? Demographic dividend is nothing but the percentage of aged workable people compared to non-workable people. That means those people who are workable class, that is 15 to 64 years, that is the workable class, what the definition for workable class means those who are in the age group of 15 to 64 years. They are called as workable class. So that population is rising in India compared to non-workable population, that is less than 14 years and above 65 years. So this is the biggest advantage. If you see other countries, this population is reverse now. They are going into the reverse mode. They are done with this demographic dividend now. Japan, China, and also the most of the European countries, they are going for now age population. More than 65 years age is going up there, and less than 64 years is not happening there. They are trying to incentivize people to go for more child, but that is not happening there. So India, that is one of the advantages. This demographic dividend will be there for next 35 years in India. So if you don't take it properly, it's a very sensitive issue. It may again bounce back, boomerang to us. Then by 2022, the median, that is average age of Indians will be around 28 years. That means wherever you turn across and see, you see most of the people in that age group of 28 years. So this is very challenging thing, because if you see other countries, China is 37, US 45, and Europe is 49. So these numbers are very scary for us, because unless and until we create good opportunities for this employment and all those things, it will be a very challenging situation for India in the coming years. And India has more than 50% of its population below the age of 25 and more than 65% below the age of 35. So 65% of our population is less than 35. And let us ignore up to 14 years. Okay, we'll take only the workable population, and that is very important. So India has 62.5% of the population in the age group of 15. So this is a very important statistic. 62.5% is what 15 to 59 years. Very, very, very important population. Okay, which is workable population, we call it as. So we have the strength of 62% of such people in that age group. Then the scary thing is in red color. Okay, so 26% of youth in age group of 15 to 28 doesn't do anything. This is where we are focusing today in Atmanirbhar project. That is Atmanirbhar Bharat project. What is that? These people never go to schools, never go to colleges, never do any productive work. They are simply waste bodies. You can call it as waste bodies. In Kannada, Dandapinda, they will call, right? Same people. They don't do anything. So age group of 15 to 28 doesn't do anything. This is the age group of the people. 26% of youths are this. We are wasting our youth power. This is where we need to focus more on. The next and very important statistic is unemployment rate high among skilled youths. That means what is that skill sets they are having, which is not employable. This is one more important statistics. 33% of those people who are having skill sets are not getting job. That means there is some serious deficiency in the skill sets what these people are possessing. Okay, see, if you see those people who have not gone to school, that is, they have not gone to even primary level schooling also. The percentage of those people who are unemployed is only 3%. That means only 3% of those people who have not done even basic schooling, they are unemployed. That means 97% those who don't go to school are getting job. That is what the statistics shows. It may be surprising you, right? If I tell like this, that means if you have a skill set, you don't get job. But if you don't have any skill set and if you don't have formal schooling also, you will get job. 97% is the employability rate, because those people are ready to do any job. You give them any job, any manual job, unskilled job, skilled job, whatever you give them, they are ready to accept it and do it, because they know their weakness. They don't have formal schooling. But once a person studies BCom or something degree, right, they think that, oh, I am a graduate, why I should go and do this type of job. Underemployment is something which people never hesitate to take up such type of job. That's why 33% of such categories are still unemployed, and which is a very scary figure. Okay, that means there is something wrong with our skill sets we need to cope up with. So coming back to these phases of industrialization which has taken place over a period of time, I think most of you might be knowing this. I'm not getting too deep of this. I want to show you the time period which has taken for shifting from one industrialization to another industrialization. So Industry 1.0, which started in 18th century, which was there up to 19th century, it took almost 120 years. This revolution took place and it expanded up to 120 years. Then the second change, that is change from 2.0 to 3.0. Okay, it took only 70 years. And see then what happened. From 1970 to 2000, there was a shift from 3.0, industry 3.0 to 4.0. This is where the digital revolution and all these things are taking place at a higher, faster rate. And that time gap started decreasing now. So from 70 years, it was only 30 years this industrialization mood or scenario existed for. Now we are already in 5.0. See the gap, 4.0 to 5.0, it is less than 20 years. See, there is tremendous pressure which is occupying in the city, in the economy, and also in the countries. There are sudden changes or disruptive innovations which are taking place in the business, which is not allowing to adopt or cope up with the changes. And think about country like India with such a skill sets and such a huge population where 1.2 crore graduates are coming out every year out of 930 colleges which are existing in India. So think about the employability factors. Think about the opportunities, creating opportunities for these people. So it's a very big challenge. Before we try to think about what is this industry 4.0, other countries are already into 5.0. So every day you are studying, seeing in the news, right, that already this 5G technology, all these things are coming out. Drone and all these technologies have started being used in various industries and various agriculture sectors and all. They have started using all this technology. So there is a serious change which has taken place. Smart city concepts have come up. Okay, so technology has been leveraged as the main thing. So we are not talking about AI now. We are talking about the other AI. It's not about artificial intelligence. It is augmented intelligence what we are talking about. Augmented intelligence is thing where man role is very less. Machine role will be very more. That means we are moving towards more of automation, more of technology driven things, which will be handling most of our work going forward. Think about country like India, where we are talking about still youth population is the advantage for us. So how do you derive this? How do you use this youth in developing this country? This is where the challenges lies. This is where we need to now think seriously about what should be done. So everything government can't do. There are some things what people should also do. Because people are in democracy, people are the power. People can contribute, not the government. Government is just a bridge which links society with people. But it's a contribution from the people's side, which is very important. Government adopts schemes in order to do that. So what is that which worries India today? Very important. India's skill ranking is 107th, which is one of the least ranking across the world. Global Talent Competitive Index is 72nd rank. So this is also, we are not done fair enough. So even though there are some improvements which are taken up, but this is not at the level at which it should have been taken place. Poor mid-level skill sets. This is the major concern in India. We don't have skilled people in the mid-level management. Okay, so this is one thing, and our education system and our skill sets are also not mapped to this mid-level skill sets. So industries are finding very difficult to select people who can work at mid-level management. They are finding it very difficult to place these people at mid-level management because of poor skill sets. Then open world, as I told, tomorrow world will dictate. India cannot dictate anything. So that is, things are changing now. So anything needs to come from, it will come from the world. Since it's an integrated globe, what we are talking about, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, what the old concept of, which has been mentioned in our text, world will decide what to do, and India should do that. Okay, we cannot dictate. So there is nothing called as big brother or big country or dominating country. Those things are all have gone now. So any countries which adopts to the world model, which works in support and cooperation with all the global countries, they become the leaders tomorrow. So there is nothing called as dominating countries which will be dominating just because of their presence or because of their investment or because of their size in military or defense or whatever it is. That is not the factor now. You cannot win war by using technology like nuclear weapon, all those things. All countries have nuclear weapon. If US launches one nuclear weapon on Cuba, Cuba again will launch one more nuclear weapon on US. See, there is nothing, you cannot win the war by fighting with the defense or nuclear weapons or nuclear warheads or whatever it is. Only thing you can do is with economy, you can win the war. If you have a strong economy, yes, definitely you can win the war. If you have a poor economy, then you will be thrown out. And this was visible in Sweden and Switzerland and all these cases. What happened in 2009? You know all these things. So I'll not go into that. So migration from outside, this is one of the serious concern. Please remember youths, most of the youths who are there today in this program, you need to compete with these guys. So because of this COVID, many people have come back, flown back from various countries to India. So now they have thought that India is our country, we need to go back. So this COVID has created a situation like this where people from outside India have started coming back. So this Vande Bharat scheme, which was launched by government, attracted 360,000 people at the first instance itself. So still many people are there who are waiting in queue, and slowly they are coming back to India along with their families. So when these people come back, these are your competitors. And imagine those people coming from UK, US and other European countries, Middle East countries, think about their skill sets. They might have studied graduation there. They might have studied +2 there. They might have studied technology related courses there. They might have come. See, you need to compete with those guys tomorrow. You cannot say that these people have come from outside India, we will not give them opportunities. No, you can't do. They are also Indians. They will be competing with you tomorrow. See, these are the facts which will be there. You need to face and you need to accept these challenges tomorrow. And the Kuwait incident, I think many of you know, this month Kuwait has told that they will be sending 8 lakhs Indians. Because they have passed something, the bill has been passed that is in the draft mode, which is there in their cabinet parliament. Once it gets accepted, right, out of 16 lakh people, half of them, Indians will come out from Kuwait. They will be sending back 8 lakh people. Imagine 8 lakh people from Kuwait alone. So these people will come back to India and they will be having various skill sets and they will be competing with you tomorrow in the market for all jobs or whatever positions you want to go for and all those things. Reskilling days, India's reskilling days is more than 90 days. That means if I want to scale up your skilling, whatever the skilling you have today, and if I want to scale up that skilling, it takes 90 days, 3 months for me to train you on that. But in other countries, it is less than 25 days. All the developed country, right, it has less than 25 to 30 days of reskilling. But India, it takes 90 days. So before today, it's the era of unlearn and relearn. The economy is changing at a very fast rate. I showed you with that industry revolution which has taken place from 4.0 to 5.0, it took only 20 years. And where is the chance for you to get trained for 90 days and upgrade your skill? Before you upgrade your skill for 90 days, you might be already on the expired skill sets. The new skill set might have come already. So this is where India is not doing good. I think something needs to be done here. Our skill policy needs to be reframed and it should be energized so that we give the boost to this reskilling days. Gig environment, I think most of you are not aware of this, and this was a practice which was there for a long time, but now suddenly this has become a very monumental thing today. The gig environment is all about how you talk about the work being done based on hourly rates. Basically, it's like freelance outsourcing. Many jobs today are outsourced. They don't want permanent employees. If I hire a permanent employee, I need to give him medical benefits. I need to give him the food benefits. I need to give him transportation. I need to take care of his DA, all those things. Why I should do all these things? Instead of that, I'll outsource the work. I'll give him, okay, take this work for 3 hours or 4 hours. I'll fix the hours. You get me this work done for 4 hours, per hour I will pay you so much amount. See, this is gig environment. Gig environment talks about freelance outsourcing, and most of the countries are doing this. And tomorrow it will be a reality in India. It is already there, but it will be coming in. It will be coming in as a big area where most of the companies in India will also think of going for gig environment, wherein they will ask you to do the work from your home at your comfortable time, but they'll ask you to code for per hour how much you charge. Per hour, 40 rupees. Okay, I'll give you this work for 3 hours. You get it done for me. 3 hours, 40 rupees, 120 rupees. You'll get, you complete the work, you give to me. I'm just giving an example. It's not so less. Technical skill related work, they'll be charging around 1,000 rupees per hour, something like that. So 3 hours, you do that work, you take 3,000 rupees, your work is done. That is gig environment. And this is becoming a very important space now. And this has become a very, and I have seen some of the sites, and the hits in that sites have gone up in the last 3-4 months, because many companies are shifting towards gig environment, because you get different types of skill set people. If I employ you, your skill set is only limited. If I do through gig, I'll find thousands of people in the market. I'll select the one and I'll give the work to him. So instead of me training you, telling that this should be done, making you understand, giving you presentation, waste of time for me. Why I should waste time? Okay, instead of that, I'll release this ad in a gig website. I'll say that, okay, any interested parties with these skill sets, okay, you take this work. Per hour you quote, okay, I'll get quote 1,500. See, within the same work, within a day or 2 days, I can get the work done. If I had used you, then I should have trained you for 3 days. I should have inspected you, monitored you for another 3 days. Then you would have worked on that. By the 10th day, you might have submitted the project. So it took 10 days for me. What is the time I lost? What is the resources I've lost? And what is the money I've spent on for the 10 days? See, this is what the business is today. And these are certain things which happens. These are something which they'll not teach you in classes. But this is certain. This is how the world looks like today. And we need to cope up with the challenge. Of course, entrepreneurship, that is the foremost thing which Madam has told you that I should focus on. I'll give you 4 case studies. Okay, I'll talk to you about, introduce you 4 people who are successful entrepreneurs. And all these people are Indians only. I will not talk about foreign people, because better to go for, since we are doing Atmanirbhar Bharat, it's better we study about our own people who have contributed towards business. And they're all small people who have become big people. Okay, I'll just share you 4 important case studies on entrepreneurship. I'll show you afterwards. So recycling, waste management, and green environment. So this is one big opportunity. If you are concentrating or thinking of doing business, if you are thinking to become a serious entrepreneur in the coming days, focus on these areas: recycling, waste management, and climate. Okay, these are the areas which gives you the business opportunities for continuous period of time. You go for any technology innovation or something like that, it's only for sometimes. It will not be for next 5 years, 6 years. You cannot think of using the same technology, because technology today vanishes within a short span of time. It's not like a time when 1982, when Maruti made its first 800, and it took 10 years for it to next bring out a new version of Maruti. What is that? One more model they bought. Okay, I forgot that, in 1989. Esteem, Maruti Esteem. So it took 7 years for them to come up with a new variant. Do you think that will happen today? No, today Maruti releases one product, next week they will come up with one more variant. Or else you will not sustain in business. You cannot compete. So, but recycling, waste management is something where people are not seriously thinking, but this will become one of the challenging areas in future. So anything you want to do, anything you want to think about business, please focus on these areas. These areas creates job and also creates a lot of money for you in the coming years. Anything relating to environment, anything relating to recycling, anything relating to waste management. If you can focus on these business areas, definitely these are the high rewarding businesses which will be giving you a lot of opportunities in the coming years. So top trending skills 2020, these are the skill sets what they're looking at. Third important skill set is very important. Creativity is very important. So you need to think yourself beyond box. You need to be innovative, creative. Then critical thinking is again very important point. This is a skill sets which you people should develop. And trust me, each one of you have the skill sets. Only thing is you need to explore this out. You need to bring it out. You need to bring it out. If you want to sustain in tomorrow's competitive world, you need to bring all these things out. If you don't, then you will be thrown out of the competition. Complex problem solving, of course, yes, very important. Reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. These are the skill sets what you people should possess. Be it if you are going for job or be it an entrepreneur. Whatever you do, you need to focus on this. I'll just give you an example. I don't know how many of you are seeing the ad from Google. Google clearly says in its ad, walk without your profile for interviews. So you need to go to the interviews without any profile. Don't send any profile or don't carry profile with you. Yes, they will give you some test. If you pass the test, you'll get a job. They don't believe in marks cards. They don't believe in your grading system. They don't believe what you are a distinction student or whatever you are. Just they ask you to come for an interview and they give some psychometric test and reasoning test. If you clear that reasoning test and problem solving skills, then you will get a job. Then formality sake, whether you have completed graduation or not, they will then ask you to bring the credentials, all your marks cards, everything, and they will verify it. That's it. So skill set doesn't come with your marks card. Please remember, skill sets, each of you have different skill set. Only thing is you need to open up those skill sets. So you need to mend your skill sets. This is the ideal time, right time for you people, because pandemic time, you don't have any other work other than some attending online classes. Majority of the time, you people will be free. So make use of this time and try to gain more and more skill sets. And lot of videos are available, lot of certification programs are available for improving your skill sets. And you need to focus on this. This is very important, okay, trending skills. So rate of automation, as I was talking to you, see the year 2025 and see the year 2018. 2018, 71% was human intervention was there. And it was only 29% machine. See the drastic change, augmented, what I'm talking about. 2025, 48%, that means industry will be looking for less and less human interference, more and more automations, more and more machines will be coming into picture. So this is the biggest challenge what you people are having. So focus more on technology, innovation, creative thinking skill sets. So which can place you or get you a job or put you into an entrepreneur. So I was talking about entrepreneur. This is the main thing I want to focus more on. So I just explained entrepreneurship in 4 important people cases. So just I'll show you 4 important people who have turned around this business, okay, within a short span of time, irrespective of from where they came in and what is their age, what is their background, what is their qualification. Nothing is important for us. Only their focus, commitment is very important. Just I'll show you those things. See, this is one person called Mahi Gowda. Okay, he came to Bangalore in 1995. Okay, he came to Bangalore after completing his studies in BSc, and he was selling the roadside books. Okay, in what is that, MG Road. So near MG Road, he was selling these books, and he started selling second-hand books. So he find it difficult during rainy season and all those season where his book used to become wet and all those things. So he started borrowing a small space. You know how much it costs in MG Road, Mahatma Gandhi Road. So those people who are in Bangalore, they are familiar with this. So they know how much it costs for a single 5 by 5 square feet or 25 square feet of space. It costs you in lakhs there. Okay, so this guy shifted next to in a small space just below the what do you call the staircase. So you'll have a staircase and below that you have some space, right? So he started his second-hand book selling in that space from street side to he went into that and he started doing it. And today, you know, he owns a company called as Blossom. You can just do Google around and you can see Blossom in MG Road. Today he is selling around, he's having his own business in 8,650 square feet in MG Road. 8,650 square feet spread across 3 floors in MG Road. And his company name is Blossom. Okay, and he sells all type of books. And there are around 500 to 600 people who visit during weekends. And equally around 200 to 300 people who visit his shop on daily basis. And he has collection of more than 4 lakhs books. And also he has an e-portal wherein books are even bought and sold on e-portal platforms. That is e-commerce stores. So he was not convergent. He came from a very, very poor background. He came from a rural village. He doesn't know English. He's only studied with difficulty and completed his graduation. He came and started a small business. Why I'm telling you this, the examples, and all the 4 examples are different cases. See, that means to do business, there is nothing called as you need to do only iFunda business. There is nothing for you to say that I will do only robots. I will only manufacture ventilator kits. See, it's not required to think in big terms like that. Even a small business of selling second-hand books may lead you to a top position. Today, he employs more than 20 people in his stores. He has a e-commerce stores. More than 500 people visits during weekend, buy books there, see about the turnover, what he does and all these things. So whenever you get time, go to Google and do the Google search for Blossom books. And you only find about what this person is all. They have given a very beautiful story about this person. Please read it. Okay, it will definitely create some interest in you if you are thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. So what my intention of showing this particular Mahi Gowda case is, language doesn't matter. Okay, only commitment and focus. He was focused and committed. After 1995 till now, almost 25 years, he knows in and out of that work what he's doing. That is second-hand books. He knows in and out. So 8,000 books he's having, and if you ask him the author and what is the book, he can show you where that book lies. That is commitment and dedication to his work, which has pushed him to such a level. So that is very important in business. So business doesn't require qualification. Business doesn't require good English. Business doesn't require anything. It's only focus, determination, and your commitment. What you are doing, that is what which leads to you into that position. So that is about Mahi Gowda case. One more case is a very interesting case from Delhi, Sri Krishna Pickles. Okay, the promoter or owner of that company is Srimati Krishna Yadav. And I need to tell about her. And in 2000, she came to Delhi with her husband. And she has told her story that when she was just I think 1.5 years or 2 years after marriage, her husband developed some medical emergency where he was not able to go out of home, and the entire responsibility to take care of the family rested on her shoulder. 2 kids taking care of her husband, and she doesn't have any relatives there. She knows no one there in Delhi, and literally she was on road. That's what she has mentioned there. So even they did not have one-time meal for them to have. So that was the critical situation under which she started doing this business. But somehow she was good in manufacturing pickles. So she came from UP, and she had learned from their traditional customs and practice, whatever used to be carried out in their village. She knew about preparing some pickles out of new ingredients and all those things. So someone came to her rescue, some women organization came to her rescue, and they gave her a loan of 3,000 rupees. So she got a loan of 3,000 rupees and started investing that into the pickle business. And every day she used to go to each road in Delhi, okay, pulling her cart and selling the pickles. She used to do this. Okay. And this she did it for quite some times. And when the demand started picking up, she opened her own stores. So the background, whatever I've given, right, these are all her own products with branded and all those things now she has done. So within a span of 18 years, she is becoming one of the leading pickle manufacturers in India. She has more than 500 women who is working with her in this pickle industry. And now she has expanded her business almost to 18 states across India. She has been awarded with Nari Samman. She has been awarded by President. She has been awarded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Go to her website. Okay, just Google around Krishna Yadav, Krishna Pickles Private Limited. You just Google around and go to her website. You see lot of awards is there in her name. Even President has given award, Prime Minister has given award. And she has done a lot of social activities. And you can look at the products. Okay, the products will be listed around 30-35 products she has made out of this particular pickle business. No formal schooling, no entrepreneurship training, no business model training and all that she has undergone. She just became an entrepreneur because she was forced to become an entrepreneur. She did not have anything else. She is not a graduate from the top university, A class or B class university, whatever you say. She doesn't know good English. She might have learned now a little bit English, but doing business, when she started business, she didn't know anything. But she had only thing is commitment. She knew her responsibility that she was the only member who should take care of her family. Everything lies on her shoulder. And she knew about her skill set, that is preparing pickles. She had that confidence in her that made her to push her to become one of the leading entrepreneurship, was awarded with Nari Shakti Award. She got this Nari Shakti Award. It's an All India award, and Prime Minister himself gave this award to her. You can go to website of her and you can see the awards list, and also the Prime Minister photo with Prime Minister, President of India, and all those things you can see. This is about Krishna Yadav, Srimati Krishna Yadav. And the next one is a very interesting character. I think most of you might have seen her. Harbhajan Kaur, who manufactured besan ki barfi. This is what she does. One thing about this lady is, she is 90 years old when she started business. Okay, she's from Chandigarh. She started her business at the age of 90th year. And today she is 94th year. She is in the 94th year. And she manufactures around 5 to 10 kgs of barfi every day. 5 to 10 kg of barfi, and she only manufactures. You can see her. That's why I put purposefully that photo. And she has a store which has been opened. And people will come to the stores to buy barfi every day. And 1 kg of barfi cost 850 rupees. Imagine 10 kgs of barfi, how much she makes every day at this age. So she was declared as Woman Entrepreneur of the Year by Anand Mahendra himself, and he appreciated. So there is nothing. If you see such type of commitment in business, definitely you can excel. And the commitment what this granny had is that she wanted to lead her own independent life. She never wanted to bother her kids. Even though kids were not happy with her to do all these things, but she told that after her husband died, she wanted to live her independent life. She did not want it to depend upon their kids. So that forced her to start her own venture, which she was very good at. She used to do it as a hobby for their kids, and on their festival time and all these things, she used to prepare this barfi at home. So most of the people and friends started telling that, okay, it's a very good taste, and this is not available in market. All those people told. And this made her interest to start a business at the age of 90. Think about it. At the age of 90, she started business. Today, she prepares around 5 to 10 kgs of barfi every day. Per barfi, per kg, it costs 850 rupees. Imagine at this age, if the lady is making around 3,000 to 4,000 rupees after net profit, I'm talking about after her all the cost per month, how much she's earning. See, this is what business is. There is no age limit for business. You can start business at any point of time. Only thing is focus and commitments are very, very, very important. And the last case is a very important case. Mr. Satya Shankar. Satya Shankar, I would like to tell him about this person. He is from Puttur in Dakshina Kannada. I think Madam will be very familiar with him because Madam is also from South Canara. So, he is from Puttur, and one thing about him is he is not even passed his second PUC. He failed in second PUC. And that is because of different reason. It is not because he could not have passed the second PUC, because of his family circumstances made him not to attend classes properly, and that pushed him to go for his own employment and all those things. So he is not even a second PUC pass student. But today he is a CEO of a company which he runs, which has a global brand. Okay, so he started his career as an auto rickshaw driver. So he started doing auto rickshaw driving as his job. He started with that job. Then he diversified into various activities like financing and opening automobile shops and all those things. Finally, he came up with, why don't I manufacture something which is indigenous, where it is available in plenty in their own districts. So that is all about organic water. Organic water is the business what he started, and that name is Bindu. Bindu is the brand for that organic water what he started. Then he started adding some jeera and all those things to that organic water. And he made it something which is healthy and which is attractive and which takes care of the normal health hazards and all those things. And this is started, and today is business worth 400 crores. Is business worth 400 crores. Okay, he is one of the leading entrepreneur today in that particular segment of business, organic purified water business segment. And you don't know one thing, his brand, Coca-Cola themselves came to his office to buy his brand. He told, no, we will not sell it. This is our indigenous. We are not ready to sell to any foreign companies. He told that, and he designed. And today we have a lot of brands of products which has come up from this particular person. So again, go to Google search, do Satya Shankar Bindu. You get his website. You see what are the products they are manufacturing today. See, again, commitment is very important in business. Anyone can venture into business. It is not that you should have money. This guy is a best example. He did not have any money. He was an auto rickshaw driver, but he had a passion. He wanted to stand on his own legs. Today he is a CEO of that company where he employs more than 600 people. Direct and indirect people, more than 600 are there today. He has opened a very big private company and he does a lot of foreign tours and all those things. So what I'm saying is, to become an entrepreneur, don't think that your family should be sound or you should be highly educated. You should be a foreign written guy with a good English, or you should have done a lot of courses on computers and all those things. Nothing is required. It's only focus and commitment what is important for you to become an entrepreneur. So only thing is, you should develop your idea into a model, business model. If you can do this, then you can also become a successful entrepreneur. So Atmanirbhar Bharat gives you a lot of opportunities today, because that talks about localization, pushing more in agriculture sector, pushing more in MSME sectors, pushing more towards transportation industries, pushing more towards infrastructure development. Okay, these are the areas where fund will be pumped into. Because if I tell infrastructure is a huge topic which covers almost all areas. Because unless and until we have a proper infrastructure network, our businesses cannot prosper. So government has come up with this Atmanirbhar project of 20 lakh crore investments in various sectors. There are legislative amendments which has taken care of, example, in the form of Essential Commodity Act, APMC Act or Mandi Acts has been amended in order to push more for agriculture sector. Okay, they have given a lot of incentive schemes for agriculture sectors, fisheries, and all the other ventures which are associated with agriculture. Industry-wise also, they have started promoting a lot of things. Even the Karnataka Industrial Policy 2020-25, which was released last week, has a lot of schemes which are running for those people who want to set up new industries in various areas. Land Reform Act has been amended by Karnataka, where anyone without even holding any title or any forefathers not holding the title for agriculture land, they can also go and buy the agriculture land, and you can do agriculture related activities in that land. So there are a lot of amendments which has taken place in state government as well as through central government. So there are various opportunities now which is knocking to your doors. Only thing is, you need to open the door, you need to enter it, and you need to enjoy that. If everyone thinks of going and working, there should be someone who should also create jobs and give work, right? Someone should give this opportunity to work. So someone should be taking responsibility for creating employment. See, when I quit my job in 2009, at that point of time, I was getting a salary of 1.5 lakhs per month. Many people told me, Why you are a fool? You want to quit job at this stage. You are enjoying a very big position in a very good company. Why don't you continue with that? No, my thinking was different. I quit the job in 2009 and started my own independent firm. Today, even though I may not earn so big amount, but I have created job directly and indirectly to almost around 12 to 13 people. They are working for me directly or indirectly. They are supporting me, and I have created job for at least 12 to 15 people today. So that is the satisfaction what I have. See, making money, building an empire is not the end. Okay, we need to be socially responsible. We need to build a society where each one of us live with happiness. Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. That is the concept under which we have been taught from small kids. We will be reciting that right every morning. Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. It should not be only in recitation. It should be also in practice. You enjoy. How much you enjoy here? You enjoy. Also, you distribute to others. You gain a lot of positive things when you start distributing to others. That is what this Atmanirbhar project is all about. So it talks about social empowerment first, then moves towards economic development. So economic development through social empowerment is what Atmanirbhar project is all about. So unless and until we brainstorm the system, society, into a very strong model, we will not be able to achieve the high growth economic development. We have tried this after 1991. We went for directly a foreign trade policy, FDI policy, all those things we went for. So where did we end up? End of the day, we did not end up anywhere. So still our GDP has now, before March also it came down. We were struggling with employment because we never have any direction set for us. Whenever the world changes, we will change here. That means we were altering our dresses according to the changes what is happening to the society, but we did not think about stitching the dress according to what society wants. That was the major failure what India has experienced over a period of time. All our acts have been copied. All our laws have been copied. We did not think about our independence. Independence means independent in thinking I'm talking about, not Independence Day, what I'm saying. So if you, if any law students are there here, or if anyone who has done LLB are there in this particular program, we have a subject called jurisprudence in law. Whenever I studied the subject, right, I felt very bad. Why? Because jurisprudence, we have the law which has been borrowed from all the countries. We had a lot of our own laws. But we never study about that in our jurisprudence. Does it mean that law is there in India only after 1947? India is a country, if you take the Mauryan Empire, which ruled in 350 BC, when Chandragupta Maurya was there as a founder of that Mauryan Empire, it ruled from entire India and it went up to Afghanistan. It even touched sometime in Iran also. And here it went up to Burma and all those things. How could these people sitting in Pataliputra used to manage the entire country where there was no digital revolution at that point of time? How they used to manage the entire country, that is the Mauryan Empire? See, that means they had law. They had all these new type of economic practices, all those things were there at that point of time. Arthashastra was there at that point of time. Legal system was there, administrative system was there, financial system was there, taxation matters were there, everything was there. That why we are hesitant to discuss on those things today? Why don't we take some good things from there and try to see whether the same model type of things can be implemented as a solution for today's problem? Why don't we do this? I think NEP is something which is trying to do all those things. So there are a lot of ancient practices which will be inculcated in NEP. And I think at last, after 34 years, now we have come up with NEP. And that will be a real big game changer for us. So to wrap up, this is the final thing what I want to say. I want to give 5 sutra for all the people who are participating in this. A, B, C, D, E. Remember this A, B, C, D, E. These are very important for you. A is agility. Agility is how you develop yourself into addressing the issues. So how fast you can do, that's very important. Quickest, survival of the quickest is very important now. Okay, survival of the quickest, not the fittest. Quickest is very important. Agility talks about that. Agility is how your brain responds to a situation and how your proper decisions are taken. So agility is very important for all of you. Please develop this habit of agility. Bold is one more thing. Competition comes, competition goes. So you need to face that. There is no other way. So you should be bold enough in taking decisions and in walking towards the tide or swimming on in front of tide. That's what I want to use the word there. You should be very bold and aggressive in your approach. Then creativity, of course, that is a very important skill. Each one of you have creativity. Try to bring it out. This is the right time for you. So you need to bring out your creativity skills, thinking skills. Develop these key things with you. And this is something which you cannot copy from others. If someone is telling, pay me 5,000 rupees with GST,
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Please unmute yourself. No, sir. Still it is muted.
automatically it went for.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it's audible, sir.
So where were you, madam? Creativity you heard about, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next one is D. D stands for domain expertise. So whatever field you are chosen or whatever areas you are doing, whether it is MBA in marketing, MBA in finance, or MBA in entrepreneurship, or whatever you have done, you should be 100% having expertise in that particular area. Okay. So you should contribute towards that particular skill sets 100%. Your contribution and your achievement in that area should be 100%. That is called as domain expertise. So D stands for domain expertise, and E, of course, ethical. This is something, value system which we have inherited from our forefathers. Ethics is something which is binding the Indian culture and tradition today, and we should never forego our ethical values wherever you are. So in your home also, you should not degrade your ethical values. In corporate culture also, when you are working for some organization also, you should not degrade your ethical values. Or even if tomorrow you become an entrepreneur, a lot of things depends on your ethical values. So why people will only opt for X company? Because they know that these companies are trustable companies. Today, trust is major thing which people binds. People go to X company because they trust them. So ethics is very important in life. So don't lose your ethical values. So have a strong ethical values in you and inculcate these ethical values in whatever way of life you choose. Whether you go as a professional, whether you go as an employee, whether you go as an entrepreneur, or whether you become a parent, whether you become a son or a daughter or whatever is that, wherever role you are performing, you should be ethically strong. So A, B, C, D, E. These are the 5 important words which you need to keep it in mind. So in order to face the next competitive world, which is there in front of you. So opportunities are there. Don't close your eyes and sit now. It's a high time for you to open up your eyes and start facing the challenges and take the world into your hand. So having said so, thank you for your patience listening. So if you have any questions, you can just ask me. I'll be happy to answer if I know those questions to be answered for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there are a couple of questions from
please.
students.
Yeah.
One is there any relation between gig environment and government policy towards labor laws by Mr. Sri Prasad Reddy?
See, gig environment, there is no labor laws. Labor laws itself is going for now labor codes. Okay, there is already one code which has come up. Wage code is there. So in coming months, we'll be having another 3 codes. Okay, so all your labor laws will vanish and only we'll be having 4 codes going forward. So this is something where it will be done at the convenience of the company. So this doesn't require any amendments or any act to come into place in order to address this gig environment factors. Gig is wherever there is a competitive thing, wherever I think I get a skill set, Wherever it works out for my cost, I will try to go and adopt that model. So government cannot interfere in the form of act or legislation in order to curb the rights of the entrepreneurs here. They can't do it.
Okay, sir. Sir, next question is, sir, how our nation can utilize the unemployed for foster growth of the nation?
See, that's what I'm telling you. The major reason for unemployability is that people skill sets needs to be improved. Okay, the skill sets are the major concerns which the people are facing today. So if you can think about your skill sets, and if you try to add new skill sets, whatever the skill set for 2020, which I told, right, that is from World Economic Forum. Okay, I've taken that report from World Economic Forum. And if you can take out that reports, and if you can improve upon your skills, and you can do your own assessment, say that where do you stand? So if you can adopt those skill sets, definitely there are opportunities for you. There is nothing called as unemployment. Only thing is we are not thinking beyond the box. So there are a lot of other areas like what the Atmanirbhar project, what Bharat, what we are talking about. There are a lot of other initiatives which the government has taken up in rural areas as well as in urban areas, where they are promoting youngsters to take up own entrepreneurship. So if people can think in that direction and start becoming an entrepreneur themselves, then the question of creating job will arise, not creation, not of unemployment will arise. So there are a lot of things which you can do it.
Yes, sir. So the next question is about what is the difference between ethical values and moral values?
See, both are almost same. Okay, moral values are inhibited by us based on some moral factors. Ethics are something which are there as a business principles or as a person under what I am working with. So what are the things I need to do? So the only thing difference between moral and ethical values are general, ethical values are specific in nature. So moral values are applicable in all walks of life, but ethical values are in particular to whatever the roles I am performing with. So if I am a banker, then my ethical value as a banker is I should be honoring my customer's check if it is correct. See, these are my ethical values. If it is there as a business principle, I need to follow. So moral values, I should not speak true lies, or I should not, I should practice always dharma. See, these are all the moral values which are there. So ethical and moral values, only with application it differs, but overall it is almost same.
Okay. Participants, any more questions?
I think, sir, you have very beautifully summarized it.
Sorry, ma'am, your voice is not clear, ma'am.
Just a second. Am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am,
I think
one of them you have to mute, ma'am. It's
sorry.
echo is coming, ma'am.
Okay. Today's talk, I think you have it's a long journey that we have taken. I felt right through the relation between India and the international scenario, the global scenario, and from there you stressed a lot on the relationship that we share with China or the US, or how strategically India is placed globally. And from there on, you went on to talk about the major vision of India, that is the Atmanirbhar Bharat post COVID-19, and especially the where you stressed on the two main focal points, that is local to local and local to global. I think that marks the day where it opens up a lot of opportunities which has been forwarded by Government of India. And also, yes, you also said about how the whole world is looking at India now. Why? Again, because of its strategic beliefs and the trust system that we have developed, and also the huge consumer market that we have here. And also the threat again about the pace that industrialization is taking fast, especially from 4.0. We were always talking on 4.0, but in no time we have stepped into 5.0. That is augmentation, where that is again a challenge for the youth to step up and skill themselves. And you also moved on to talking about the challenges that lie ahead for all our students, for the youth, especially the reports that you shared in the India skill ranking, which is very, very alarming, where we stand at 107th rank, where we have such a huge population and, the universities, the colleges, everything, but still we stand at 107th rank. Yeah, as you said, the national education policy may be a good step ahead, which may transform our Indian education system, but also a lot of threats for the students ahead about reskilling, unlearning and relearning, and the gig environment, which is again a great, it may be an opportunity, and at the same time, it is again going to maybe a little uncertain because of the instability, or, it's going to be more of threat to the students, because the future of environment is going to be so unstable. Gig environment, although is good, but still there's a lot of competition which is going to be there. And then of course, you showed us the way that yes, to make a mark where that entrepreneurship has to be taken up, that is in the sectors of recycling, waste management, or green environment. I think you have shown the way to the students if at all they have any ideas that they can take it ahead in these, where there is a lot of business opportunities. And also, sir, I really appreciate your what to say, the guidelines that you have given to our students, where they have to skill themselves, especially on certain trending skills you pointed out, especially in this COVID-19. I know all the students are at home. Now that all the syllabus is also completed, they have plenty of time to upskill themselves. Especially there are a lot of, as you said, there are a lot of courses online, and this is a time they have to skill themselves. And as you said, the industry is looking at more than their certificates. It is their analytical thinking, the innovative ideas, the active learning and critical thinking, or the reasoning that they are looking at. And the case studies that you presented, I think it is an eye-opener for all the students. And then you ended up with the 5 sutras. I think today's message you have concluded, it's a package you have given to all the students. I'm sure they will take home with a lot of ideas, with a lot of learning for the day. Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. You have the students, not only the students, even we learned a great deal through your presentation. I think you have spent quite a lot of time with us. You have shown us the opportunity. You have also shown the pathway for students to take ahead. So nothing to worry. I think post-COVID has also given us a lot of opportunities where they need to be more socially responsible and then take the path ahead. I thank you so much, Kaushik sir, for your precious time.
Welcome, madam. I have not spent, madam. I have invested my time. I want to see how many of them will become entrepreneurs now.
True. Yes, that's a very fantastic word that you've said. It's investment. Time has been invested.
I have invested my time. 2 hours I invested actually. I want to see at least if 10 people who are listening to me, if they can become entrepreneurs and create job for another 50 people. That makes a lot of difference.
Then it's worth the time spent. I'm sure most of our students will definitely get into that. And I'm sure they will also get back to you to know, sir, how do we go about? How do we start? What are the legal implications? How do I start a company? Maybe they'll come back to you for all this guidance.
I can help them out. Any crap idea you bring, we can convert it into business model.
Yes, sir. I'm sure they'll come back to you on this. Yeah, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Samata?
Yes,
Samata, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions? If there are any questions, any more?
No, ma'am. No more questions, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
But the students have answered to search investment, ma'am. Sure, they will give him a good returns, it seems.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Very good. No, it's written for them, not for me.
Yeah, sir.
True.
Madam, if anyone wants to ask any question or something, you can just mail it to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Because some people will be hesitant to ask questions on online platform. So
Okay.
if they want to ask question or if they want to send messages also, let them do it. I
No.
can answer to them.
Yeah, we will share your phone number and the email ID, sir, to the students group.
Okay. Yeah.
So that they can approach you directly in case they have any queries. Maybe
Sure.
you can guide them ahead if at all they have some good ideas and want to convert it into a real good venture. Maybe
Sure,
they'll
sure.
be having which they may not be bold enough to talk it over here. I'm sure they will definitely come back to you. Okay, we will
Sure,
share
sure.
your email ID to them so that they can write to you.
Sure, madam,
Thank you
sure.
so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
participants,
My
and thank you all the students. And thank you, my faculty members of Aditya Institute of Management Studies also, who got together to make sure that this program goes on well, smoothly, and very fruitfully. As Sir said, even if at all 10 students become entrepreneurs, look, hearing this, I think it is worth the presentation and worth the time that we have spent on this. And I can only wish all our students all the best in the days ahead.
More than that, our Prime Minister will be happy, madam.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
madam. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.